When I was working on my coaching certification, one thing became clear. I was getting incorrect answers during the practice exams in the areas where my personal feelings and experiences did not meet the conventional wisdom presented in the course sections. I knew going in that I would not fully agree 100% with everything, and that's fine, but I was going to read, so this was no real surprise, but I found that, like most things, I have a hard time putting my own beliefs aside in order to answer the questions correctly. Again, bunny quotes. So when presented with a question, I drift to what I believe to be true and not necessarily the correct answer according to the curriculum. So this is this is a necessity in order to pass the course, which I did, but probably with a lower grade than I could have had if I had gone back and looked up the answers when I was confused, although I'd argue a few spots that I was not the confused one. Since I was able to take that part one test twice, I figured I'd just go and answer the first time without resorting really to the open book and see how I did. Then if I need to take it again, I take it again. But I passed, and I didn't really need to go back, which means one, I retained what I was taught pretty well, and two, most of which I feel to be true actually does match. But what doesn't? Part of the part of the course teaches that through your coaching career, you will develop your own philosophies. Since my beliefs are based on what I have personally experienced, as most coaches, really have, in the over 8 years that I've been training and competing in triathlons and running and trail running and everything, I'm focused on the people I want to coach. So my philosophy is geared in that direction, and it doesn't always jive with the coaching principles outlined, which tend to be toward the elite age grouper. I will more than likely not coach many at that level of athlete. Hopefully that the people I coach will, fly the nest and become that maybe later on. I really hope that that does happen. But the people I will be coaching are probably more going to look a lot like me, or at least what I looked like when I started. So when I worked on the final section, I started thinking the final section was more of a practical where they give you all this information on an athlete, a supposed athlete, and you have to build a training plan, answer some questions, kind of try to pick apart his bio or her bio, and build a training plan that kind of meets the needs of the person. So so as I worked on this final section, I started thinking more about what my philosophy is, and this is what I've come with up over the as of today. And these may or may not change over the next years as I gain more experience, but this is kind of how I look at it, and most of the people that have read the blog and have listened to the show know a lot of these about how I feel about things. But it's always good to go over stuff, right? So the basis is the same as the mantra in on the back of most of my shirts, and as the tagline of some of the shows is swim calm, bike strong, run steady. And what does this mean to me, and how do I express that to a coaching client? And so this is what I have in my head right now. So as far as swim calm, this is going to sound like a bulleted list, but this is just how it is. So, as far as swim calm, the importance is placed on the mental aspect of the swim and developing form. So speed comes as the athlete becomes more comfortable with form and being in the water. Time in the pool builds confidence. Racing builds confidence. When at all possible, get into the water at the race venue you're training for. This went directly in the face of my most recent triathlon and the group I was training with. That the coach there and a few of the participants were really adamantly against getting in the water at the race venue. And totally did not get that. I finally just said, look, you guys do what you want. I'm going to go to the race venue because, I've never heard of a way to calm anxiety is to stay away from the race venue and be surprised on race day. I don't get that at all. But so it was definitely in the face of some of that. So, get into the water if you can. It'll calm anxiety once it becomes a known entity. The no surprises on race day, and we've all heard that before over and over and over again. And do what is needed during the race to maintain calmness, including starting in the back and to the side and not getting in the middle of the scrum. Use the rules as you need to. If you need to stop and stand, if you're able, then do it. If you need a rest, grab a kayak or a buoy. You cannot win a triathlon in the swim. But if you go out too fast or get panic, you can definitely lose it there. So keep that in mind. As long as you're not being propelled forward, you can do whatever you want in the water. You can tread water for an hour as long as you get under the time. But do what you have to do to stay calm. If you're a stronger swimmer, hell, get in the middle of it. But if you're, as I am, anxiety provoked with doing swims like that, then just stay away from the scrum and get out of the way and just let people do what they need to do, and you run your own race. So as far as bike strong, weekday training is usually based on intense intervals over the shorter rides, and the longer rides are based on the weekends and really saddle time over speed. So because you're getting your body prepared for being in the saddle, with an Ironman, especially 4 to 7 hours. So you need to be in the saddle for 4 to 7 hours, regardless of the distance and regardless of the speed. Speed comes as endurance builds. And train to the course of your A race. See number 5 in the swim section. Familiarity breeds calmness, and calmness promotes confidence. I don't know if I came up with that or not, but TM. So run steady. As a heavy athlete, the run can be the most painful experience. Just trust me on this. It's form over speed, just with everything else. Use run-walk intervals, gradually increasing the run sections over time as the body allows. You need to emphasize to yourself and to anybody you're with that walking is not defeat. It is okay to walk. I know there are runners out there that will argue till the cows come home about if you walk during a marathon or if you walk during a race, then you didn't run the race. And I'm sorry, that's baloney. Any way that you can get through the race, you do it. And if you need to walk, you walk. Use zone 2 training on the longer runs. If you're a client of mine, I do that. So especially during the base phase when you're building your build phase before the real training starts, do a lot of zone 2 training. We're trying to prepare your body for long bouts, trying to build your metabolism so it tries to stay in zone 2 and can access those endless stores of fat that's on your body regardless of your size for energy versus relying on sugar spikes of 20 minutes at a time. It'll help you with your GI issues. It's just a better way to go. I agree with it and believe it 100%. Brick sessions after all bike rides during a triathlon training, even if it's just a light 10-minute walk jog. Get off the bike and run. This is just talking to somebody at work today about this. My biggest weakness is running off the bike, and the fact that I still have issues with it shows you that I do not do it enough. So even, those of us that coach it and preach it don't always follow our own advice. And a big one that I believe in is this one. I was glad when we used the Hansen method with Rob on the last one, and we'll be using it again for Chicago, that they kind of fall into this as well. Maybe not with the same percentages, but it's still in the same area. No runs over 70% of the race distance. It's due to injury and recovery issues. As heavier, older athletes, a long run of 20 miles can create a recovery need of 3 to 4 days afterwards, which is 3 to 4 days of not training. So if I'm training for a marathon and I'm doing 20 to 22 mile training runs, I could be down on a Sunday. I could be down until Thursday, just knowing me. So that's 4 days of not training. I don't see how that helps anybody. I think the most you need to do for a marathon training, if you're just purely marathon training, is 17 to 18 miles. If you can make it, maybe 20 at the most. If you can make it there, you're going to be able to run a marathon. So I just believe that too. So, most injuries occur during these long pushing training runs. So the last thing I'm going to talk about is like nutrition. And this is always the one that gets people riled up, if you say something that totally does not agree with them. But and this is the place where I really deviated from where the course taught. I do not believe in the high carb needs that are taught in these courses. I believe we train our bodies to be fat burners even during a race, and you have an infinite amount of energy in your body that's fat. And if you can train your body to access those stores versus relying on quick hits of sugar, you are going to be able to run forever. As you know, it's just a fact. And the only way to do that is to train that way. So fat adaptation during training should result in the ability to race with a minimal need for carb intake. Eat real food only, nothing processed. This includes gels and goos that everybody uses. Don Blatner taught in her book, in her website, is like no crap, CRAP. It stands for no chemicals in the ingredients, no refined sugars or flour, nothing artificial, which includes sweeteners, and no preservatives. In other words, real food. So, all that's just a start. And I know some listening to this are not going to agree, but there are still proponents of calorie counting and calorie in, calorie out theory, 65 to 70% carb eating, etc. If that works for you, fine, have at it. But I know as a heavy athlete, it doesn't work this way. And most of the others I know in the same situation react the same. So take that for what it is. If I can help you out, feel free to reach out to me, John at enduranceforeveryone.com. Rob will also be able to help, Rob at enduranceforeveryone.com. Or both of us at teamE4E at enduranceforeveryone.com. And John out.